India has the largest amount of ancient religious texts that are authenticated and still intact. The Vedas, the Mahabharata, the Puranas, the Upanishads, the Jain Sutras, and the Buddhist Dhammapada, and so forth. Four of the largest religious denominations originate in India: Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. The transcendental nature of Indian religious philosophy remains a great source of wisdom for searchers of truth today. Now, terms such as nirvana, karma, and yoga are part of most people's vocabularies today, whether they truly understand their meaning or not. Today, India is world famous for yoga, originating far back into the ancient world. Back then, people studied how animals move and stretch with ease and with no self-harm, and they copied them. It's also considered to be an outgrowth from their ancient ritual practices founded by early Hindu sects. The earliest literature accredited to yoga is found in the Upanishads, written down far back in the ancient world. To them, yoga is not merely a physical exercise, but moreover regarded as a way of life, a concise approach to the nature of reality, the self, and the absolute as a whole. Simply, yoga means union with the absolute, and according to the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, austerity, the study of sacred texts, and the dedication of action to life constitute the disciplines of yoga's mystical union. There are 5 different branches of yoga. Karma yoga, which simply means the yoga of right action and service to the flourishing of life. Hatha yoga deals with the strengthening of the body to facilitate the other branches. Bhakti yoga, which teaches the devotion and the love of life and to take care of every living thing. Jnana yoga, which teaches the study of life and its betterment, the reading of sacred texts and philosophical contemplation. Raja yoga represents a deeper investigation of man's inner world and through the meditational practices to discover the eternal awareness that is us and the universe as a whole. Ultimately, what's called yogic science says that all aspects of the branches are needed to reach the place of wisdom, which today is often termed as enlightenment. Yoga also states that we may lean towards 1 or 2 branches, but that all aspects balanced constitute our wholeness. Yoga can also be summed up as the preparation to become a peaceful and well-integrated human citizen in the universe. Some of the most well-known expressions of Indian thought and human nature is due to a prince from Lumbini, a town on the border between India and Nepal. Kept away in luxury until he was 29, when he at last ventured out into his locality. He was so moved by the suffering masses, obviously caused by ignorance and political and economic oppression, that was governed solely by the monarchy, the priest class, and the oligarchy as a whole. He would eventually dedicate his life to answer why suffering exists at all. In the 6th century BCE, Prince Siddhartha from the kingdom of Sakya decided to renounce his material life and walk out in poverty on a quest to understand the true nature of reality. Eventually he settled on the dusty roads and in the remote forests of West Bengal to solve this enigma. After putting himself through numerous tests of purity, he gave up and sat under a tree to wait for enlightenment, regardless if he had to discard his physical form in the process. To cut a long story short, Gautama Buddha, one of the main leaders of Buddhism, saw through the illusion of form and formulated a philosophy which then was basically simple and could be understood and lived by the common uneducated people. With unbridled optimism, Buddha concluded that civilization could be sustained through the act of planting good intentions in each and every moment, along with a considered understanding and letting go of one's own past, to eventually reap the fruits that would lead to contentment and a far better world in general. Buddha held that we can liberate ourselves from this world, or Maya as he called it, and that life was not so much of a mystery, because after all, to be born was to pass into another illusion, and to live here was potentially being vulnerable to suffering. The reason why we are here was moreover to wake up from this eternal dream. Life is a school, located in our inner and outer world, where we take instructions from the last mistake we made. Meaning, to learn how to obey the laws present in space was to understand that karma follows courses like the wheel cart follows the feet of the oxen. According to Buddha, being a mere transitory thought, the personal self persists solely where selfishness resides and suffering follows. The self being born out of a growing and decaying illusion could eventually only be what it believes it is. Pondering the great mystery of life, Buddha's search for freedom risked to destroy the social order the priest class tried to maintain. Instead, he shifted responsibility for mankind's suffering away from the gods and back to man himself. Buddha summed it up thus: if your God does not prevent evil, he is not good. And if he cannot prevent evil, he is not God. Subsequently, if we put our own life in order, the wisdom of the universe appears. An enlightened life is a selfless life in which, through the acts of reflecting on the law of nature, we take refuge in compassion and love. Religious orthodoxy of all ilks has perpetuated the division between Hinduism and Buddhism as a way of competition. The fact of the matter is, Buddha was born as a Hindu and taught by the best Hindu philosophers of his day. As with various distortions that have grown over time in relation to religions in general, he never tried to form another religion, or that he ever claimed to be a god, or an avatar. He was simply somebody wanting to know the truth. The greatest philosophical and scientific influence on most ancient Western thinkers is due to one man in particular, Pythagoras. His main purpose was to gather knowledge from various religions, philosophies and sciences, and to bring them back to Greece to be debated. It is said that Pythagoras was an arduous traveler, and through the caravan routes he roamed many places in the ancient world. Pythagoras is famous for the discovery of what we refer today as the Pythagorean theorem. This is basically a geometrical fundamental, already known to Indian mathematicians, as stated before. Numerous ancient historians stated that Pythagoras lived for a number of years with the Brahmins of India. Also, the Greek historian Philostratus states with conviction in his work The Life of Apollonius of Tyana that Pythagoras did travel to India and was taught various branches of Hindu philosophy. Remember, this event took place 200 years after Bodhayana's discoveries in the 9th century BCE. Was it in India, accompanied by Vedic mathematicians, that Pythagoras was given instructions about the theorem named after him? Amongst many symbols, Pythagoras' most sacred symbol was the tetractys, a symbol that resembles the kind of pyramidal emblem that Pingala used to express his mathematical formula. Pythagoras stated that the tetractys contained the mathematical explanation for the structure of the universe. However, from personal research, it seems that this mysterious symbol represented an ancient Indian mandala used to formulate the mathematical sequence we wrongly accredit to Fibonacci. It is incorrect to say that it was Leucippus and Democritus from Greece that founded atomism in the Western world. Rather, they borrowed from the earlier calculations made by Pythagoras, aided by ancient Hindus. Pythagoras did not use the term atom, meaning uncut in Greek, a term coined by Lysippus, but he used the term monad, meaning the one. Interestingly, Pythagoras used a similar philosophical approach to the qualities of atoms, as already mentioned by the Hindus and Jains. There seems to be no other explanation than to assert that Pythagoras did carry scientific, philosophical, and religious concepts from India back to Greece. Eventually, Pythagoras would inspire a whole new Greek world of philosophy. Therefore, we have to conclude that India, through its emissary Pythagoras and other unknown researchers, sparked a revolution that now holds mathematics as a universal science. In other words, atomism has now turned into quantum mechanics, while the sciences of yoga has spread to every corner in the world. These are just a few examples of how India changed our world. Today we live a single page of history, one that will determine whether our species can continue. And as we continue with this series, we will explore more of the profundity of Indian thinking, how it affects our way of life, and how by understanding more of its wisdom, we can revolutionize our world for the betterment of future generations to come.